This episode is brought to you by Padaris, empowering transport planners everywhere. See padaris.com/podcast for details. Today's guest, a fellow of the CIHT with some 30 plus years experience, begins way back with Devon County Council in 1989. Oscar Faber follows, now of course ACOM, then on to WSP, that's stint at TPK, that's Tucker Parry Knowles. Operation Director follows next at RPS, Section Director of course at Sistra, and now since 2019 Managing Director and owner of Evoke Transport based over in Reading, now employing over 10 staff. A second office now in operation in Birmingham since 2022. On top of that, a family man to 3 young daughters, an ardent traveller and skier. First, what have I missed out? And secondly, where do you get your energy from? Richard, Stacey, welcome to the podcast.
Absolutely, Scott. Thank you very much. Left out JMP, obviously prior to their takeover by Sistra.
JMP, of course, yeah. Yeah, of course. Well, look, Richard, it's all there, isn't it, really? Your CV on paper, it kind of reflects to me anyway what looks like a kind of a natural, a kind of organic growth. I guess you could look at your career history or trajectory and say, yeah, look, starting a business is probably your next obvious or likely possible step. But where else could you have gone before perhaps 2019? Or has the entrepreneurial nudge always been there? Did you see Evoke as a vision years before its inception?
Yes, I think so, Scott. To be fair, always enjoyed working for smaller companies. Tucker Parry Knowles, TPK, then JMP. On both occasions, I was at the company and they were acquired by larger companies. At this time, if Evoke are ever acquired, at least some of the money will go into to my pocket. So yes, it's always an ambition to start my own company. Yes.
Brilliant. All right, well, let's just rewind a little bit first. The introduction of transport planning in your life came from where? What did you study? No doubt that was an influence.
Actually studied human and physical geography at the University of Reading. Knew vaguely about planning, transport planning, whilst undertaking the degree. But if I'm honest, my entire career is actually built on a mistake. After graduating, I applied for the wrong job at Devon County Council and succeeded.
Whoa. This sounds like a story there. Go on. Sounds like an interesting story. Let's hear that one.
There was a job from Devon County Council advertised in the local paper. I'm born and bred in North Devon. It's back for the summer. A good friend of mine pointed out or said there was an advert in the paper would suit geography graduates. I flicked through the local paper, saw an ad from Devon County Council. Didn't say anything about geography graduates, but I thought I'll apply for it in any case. Applied for the job, interviewed, got the wrong job, only later to find that the job that suited geography graduates was in the Tourism and Development Department. And here I am 34 years
So
later.
what happened? but that was still with Devon County Council, was it?
Yes, it was, yes.
All right, fine.
I worked for Devon County Council for 12 months and then they paid for me to undertake the MSc in Transport Planning and Engineering at Leeds University.
Yeah, fantastic.
Once you've done that, you're in and you're stuck in the career of transport planning.
Yeah, of course you are.
So here I am.
Yeah. 34 years later.
Thanks, Scott. Thank
well
you.
done to you. Well, listen, just give us a clue of what you do. Perhaps just give us a highlight of a recent project, maybe a career highlight, anything notable, maybe an amusing or funny story.
There's quite a few there, Scott, actually, but one that sticks in my mind, great project for Evoke. Really pleased to have worked on it. Working for Raymond Blanc at Manoir, his high quality.
The chef.
Oh, yes. Yeah, the chef.
Yeah.
Lovely place. Actually went there for a meeting just in the gap after lockdown. Had a project team meeting. Raymond Blanc sat next to me. As charming as he comes across on TV, really interested. I had to sit down and the conversation must have been about 20 minutes explaining why we couldn't provide a roundabout to access the development.
Oh, no.
Why it had to be a priority junction. And all credit to him, he engaged, he was very interested. He kept telling me that he'd promised the local villagers a roundabout for the last 20 years. And here am I saying, sorry, we can't do that. But yeah, a lovely personality, great project to work on. And now we're designing section 278 for a right turn priority junction, not a roundabout.
There's a nice little claim to fame story. I bet you've been dining out on that one for years, if you pardon the pun.
Yes, unfortunately, not dining at the Mumwa.
Yeah. Maybe soon. Hey, listen, is Zuko in today? I'd see that you had an office dog.
No, unfortunately, he's not. He's at home with his feet up, looking at the next business plan.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure. And I'm guessing as well, Richard, given the locations where you've worked and your history and where you live, you're probably a Royals fan too. That's Reading FC.
No, unfortunately not. For my sins, Everton, but do have a soft spot for Reading, like you said, being where I've been based for a long time. So, yeah.
All right, great. Well, listen, thanks for that. Listen, Richard, let's try and ease you in gently with your current view of development planning, if we can. Is it all still making sort of reasonable sense out there? Maybe give us an insight or an idea of your kind of biggest frustrations daily within transport, kind of that you see.
Do you know, Scott, I'm not sure development planning has ever made sense to me. There are many frustrations, a lot of positives, of course, but many frustrations. And I think the planning policy, the lack of urgency regarding housing delivery, the changing political climate is all a frustration. I sympathise with local authority council officers, but that is a frustration, the sort of resource shortage, the lack of people who are prepared to make decisions at local authorities, officers hiding behind email rather than communicating and picking up the phone and talking to you, the formal pre-app process and the frustration of delays. It's a wonder we get anything delivered in this country, I must admit.
Yeah. Why don't you give us a background into your most challenging project that you've got on right now, or perhaps one to date, and perhaps the outcome of where that's heading?
Yeah, there's been a few challenging projects in my career, I must say, of course, unsurprisingly. I think back to one historically when I was working with WSP, working for the Excel development in London. We, in the office, had produced lots of lovely plans of the servicing, getting the HGV vehicles in to Excel itself and the service ramps, produced lots of plans. I went down to meet with Excel and to talk to the service managers when the boat show had just transferred across from Earl's Court, and had some very frank discussions with some of the HGV drivers who used some rather industrial language to tell me that, yeah, you may have all that on a plan, you may have those lovely drawings, but it ain't going to work in reality. So a very important lesson in life. Always think about the practicalities and the deliverability. A couple of challenging projects on now, Scott. Local plan allocation sites. I think the most challenging one recently, a large local plan site where it was the local planning authority's preferred allocation site, but we never really fully got the support of the highway authority and the officers. And I think that was a very, very challenging project, very difficult. But yeah, we delivered. We gave a very good performance at the examination in public. But yeah, it was quite challenging, I must admit.
How do you deal with that in the office or as a team when you had those kind of frustrations? Is it just kind of pick yourself up, brush yourself down and move on?
No, it is challenging. I think one of the things I'm very proud of at Evoke is the quality of the team and the team spirit. Everyone mucks in, everyone will support each other. We've had some again projects where certain individuals, will find it difficult and stressed, but everyone, sort of takes the care to make sure everyone's okay and working through things. And also, do you know what's important? Sometimes taking time out, taking a break, and also finding time to celebrate those little successes as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Very,
Yeah,
very
100% agree
important.
with those. If you are up against it on, say, a Friday afternoon, or it is going wrong, do you sometimes just, let's go, guys, shut the office, let's go to the pub, or let's go for a walk, or let's go and get ice creams, or, kind of as a team, do you kind of, you can't always win, it's a difficult job that you do. You can't always be winning, surely.
No, and I've got to admit,
How do you deal with that?
firstly, now in a post-COVID world, Friday afternoon, very difficult because not many people are in the office, working from home, so it's
Yeah,
challenging.
of course.
But yeah, sometimes it gets to that time on a Friday afternoon when you just say to people that that's it. It's been a busy week. Everyone stop, quit. Weekend starts here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
very,
Absolutely.
very important to get that balance right with your home life
Yeah.
as well.
Have you, and how just as a kind of a sidebar on that, how have you, kind of managed the whole kind of lockdown thing? Do you find that actually you're still just maybe a little bit more productive because people now have the freedom to, walk the dogs in the morning, they can drop the kids off to school, come back and then turn on? Is it all kind of gone as smooth as everyone else is telling me?
Do you know what, Scott? Lockdown came about 6 months after we had started the company. And if I'm completely honest, when the Prime Minister at the time, I won't mention his name, I never mention his name, the Prime Minister at the time announced lockdown, I'll be honest, I went home and thought, that's it, we're finished. And yeah, went home and cried. We had a really good team meeting the next day. Everyone mucked in together, and I think over lockdown we were really busy, worked from home, and then got together when we could, when lockdown was eased.
Yeah.
Personally speaking, I like being in the office. I enjoy that interaction. I think the team spirit is much better when you're in the office. But also, you've got to recognise that things have changed. For some people, we've got some staff who live further away, and it's not,
Yeah.
it's time and cost for them to come into the office. So, like most companies now, we're flexible and we can work in a flexible
Brilliant.
manner.
Yeah. Well, listen, kudos for you for making that work during lockdown. I've had a few dark days myself in business, but yeah, for managing to get that through, probably a true testament to your leadership and the kind of business that you're running here. But listen, we digress. Look, Richard, just moving on. Tell me one thing that perhaps any, let's say, lesser experienced transport planner needs to understand quickly or adapt to if they're going to excel as a transport planner today.
For a company like ours, what we don't have is an environment where we pigeonhole people. For us, we need all-rounders, people who are prepared to muck in and get involved in all aspects of a project. I think people's dedication and prepared to sort of muck in is very, very important for us. We don't have a conveyor belt mentality. We like people to get involved in all aspects of the project. But what I find most important is communication, team spirit within the team, but also communication to external parties. And you've got to be able to translate solutions. Sometimes solutions can be quite technically based. You've got to be able to communicate those and translate those to a range of or a variety of audience. You could be talking to a technical highway officer, but you can then on the next day be trying to explain the same solution to a local resident, dare I say, to a planning officer, to the client, or to other members of the project team. So I think adaptability is also a very, very important quality.
Yeah. Yeah. What about some of the softer skills with regards to the job and how you conduct business? What should they be learning right now? Or what skill sets, rather, do you kind of look for when hiring, or would you like to see developed on the job?
I think, again, for a small company like ours, someone who's a good fit with our culture and values, a team player is definitely important for us. But again, I come back to communication skills. And I know it's difficult in the modern world, but we need to try not to hide behind email, behind WhatsApp, text messages. You can get so much more done if you can pick up the phone, to people and
Just
talk
pick up
to
the phone.
people,
Yeah,
speak
brilliant.
to clients. It's interesting. You get a two-way conversation rather than one way.
Yeah,
Someone once said that if the telephone had been invented after email, everyone would be heralding it as such a great invention. What, you can actually
yeah,
talk to people and get an instant answer and communicate and have two-way
yeah,
conversation. Isn't that so much better than email?
yeah, much better. Yeah, much better. Richard, as always, my favourite line on this podcast is success leaves clues. Okay, any lesser experienced transport planner should be, I believe, paying attention to anyone with 30 plus years experience for insights and knowledge ready to distill. But if I really had to squeeze you, though, for specific advice, perhaps an area that either you personally excel at or understand really well, can you share perhaps, what it is and why it's important?
Yeah, listen, Scott, I'm under no illusions. There's a lot of transport planners out there, a lot of very good transport planners. Some of them I know very well. There's a lot of people who can do our job. What makes us stand out? I think tried to take a fresh approach, but building and developing relationships with clients, building and developing relationships with highway officers. I think that is very important. It is still a people business. I think that's one of my core strengths is clients. I like to think enjoy working with me, enjoy working with us. I think sometimes, clients want to have that sort of what you might say more engaging social aspect as well. They don't always want to pick up the phone and start talking about the project straight away. I've got some very good clients, who I know about their home life, family life, etc. And I think that is so important. Personality counts for a lot. I think getting your ideas across helps. The networking, the introducing yourself to new clients, picking up the phone to people, making an effort. Of course, technical ability is important. But as I said earlier,
Yeah,
if you cannot
yeah,
communicate those technical issues, if you can't relay them to your clients, if you can't develop a relationship with a client, then you can have all the technical ability in the world, but it's not going to do you any good.
yeah. And is there a process to how you do that, Richard, or again, is that just come from the top down leadership? This is how you install, let's call it, client management or stakeholder management. Is there a set way that you do that, or is it just fed down from your 30 plus years
I think a
experience
lot of it is fed down.
within Evoke?
A lot of it is fed
Yeah,
down, of course, and you try and lead by example. Again, I think as part of our philosophy is getting the right people. Again, I mentioned the cultural fit, etc. We have had some work with an external, I was going to say a team coach, looking to
yeah,
work with the team in terms of our personality types, understanding how different
yeah.
people communicate, how different people react to different
I
styles
think
of
that's really important.
communication,
Yeah, yeah.
help to understand each other as individuals. So that was really interesting. Good couple of months and good couple of sessions.
Yeah, great. This episode of Practical Perspectives is brought to you by Padaris. Planning, engineering, and stakeholder engagement seamlessly integrated into the cloud. To discover how Padaris is helping the likes of Arup, WSP, and Sistra plan smarter, faster, and more collaboratively, head over to padaris.com/podcast today. Richard, what about some lesser known regulations, let's call it, or technical applications or policy considerations that impact transport planning or highways design? Tell me something that not everyone in your position might know or be aware of, but perhaps should be.
Well, there's a lot of regulation design standards. There's a lot nationally, there's a lot for individual local authorities, there's a lot of policy.
Yeah.
And in some respects, that's what helps to make transport planning such an interesting career. Um,
Yeah.
but I think you've got to know something about things such as the Highways Act and how to interpret it. You've got to know about TROs and implementation, but you also need to know the wording of planning policies, local transport plans. And do you know what? I think some people can get too hung up on things sometimes. There are, on occasions, reasons and justifications as to why a development may not be policy compliant. And you need to set out your evidence and justify as to why that can be acceptable. But do you know what, Scott?
Mhm.
What I always try and enforce, again, it comes back to this communication of ideas. For me, for a transport assessment, transport statement, for me, the most important section of a transport assessment is the executive summary.
Tell me more.
Well, sometimes the transport assessment isn't just for local authority officers to review. Of course, they will review it and they will be the ones who go through it in detail. But it's got to be a document that tells a story. How did you derive the solutions that you're recommending? What are the impacts? What process did you go through? But the executive summary, sometimes that is the only section of a report that people will read. So you've got to make sure that you can communicate your work in a non-technical fashion so it's readily understood in a relatively short space in terms of page numbers. You've got to communicate your ideas. You've got to make people understand what you're proposing, what the development is, what the impacts are, what the mitigation is. And you've got to be able to tell that story. And you've got to leave the reader coming away with the right impression, the impression that you want the reader to take away. And that, to me, is very key. Again, sometimes members, they'll obviously take the advice of their officers, but they will refer to an executive summary first. They may not read the pages and pages of Lindsay printout and Lindsay discussion about capacity and degrees of saturation, but they will read the executive summary. And that's why you've got to encapsulate everything in a couple of pages.
Brilliant. Richard, how does an ambitious transport planner stand out and get noticed, perhaps for either fast track promotion or advancement? Are there some signals that you've seen in your 30 plus years? What are we looking for? What are the signals?
Yeah, I think you start to recognise the people who are going to sort of progress with their career. I think you've got
Yeah.
to have an interest. It's quite a demanding but an interesting career. It's very diverse, as I said. You've got to be dedicated and I think prepared to sort of muck in, go that extra mile. And again, I think just being a good, rounded individual. For a company like us, I accept there are large companies who will undertake specific tasks and they want someone just to sit there and do strategic modelling for days on end, etc. Now, that will attract a different type of person. But I think someone who is just a good person to work with, someone who's dedicated, and someone who will help derive solutions and communicate those solutions.
Does hard work help at all? I almost think if somebody's made director in a very short period of time, they're putting in 12-hour days. Is that really a thing these days within transport planning? Necessarily working the hardest get you places, or is it just working a bit smarter?
Listen, Scott, to be fair, I wish sometimes I wasn't doing 12-hour or plus days. It is a factor for some.
But you're the boss. Sometimes
yeah, you're right. It comes with the territory. It shouldn't do. No. Work smarter. We don't ask our staff to sort of go beyond the 7.5 hour day. There will be occasions, and we appreciate whether it's doing site visits or overnight site visits, etc. We do certainly appreciate that, but it should not be a standard. Getting the work-home life balance is so important these days. Health and well-being, is very key for us. So no, I think if you're working 12-hour days every day, then something's going wrong, and that is not the route to progression, if I'm honest. And I'll stop doing it myself.
But listen, I know you must. Well, listen, you must have put a shift in when you started the business. So let me ask you, what was, or perhaps still the biggest hurdle that you had to overcome when you started your business? If anyone was looking to, say, break away or start themselves and where you were a few years ago, what lessons would you give to them, or what have you learned that perhaps you can share here?
Do you know what? It's something, as I said earlier, something that I wanted to do, and what always held me back wasn't anyone else, it was myself. It was having the
Yeah,
confidence to make the leap, having the confidence that clients, colleagues, professional partners would come with you, follow you, etc., and want to work
yeah,
with you when you're part of a smaller company rather than a
yeah,
large organization. So many
yeah,
people said to me, I believe in you, you can do it. Yeah, of course you'll be successful. Clients gave the full support. Again, other people we work with gave full support, and it's always myself that was holding it back. But other
yeah,
advice, again, don't go into this lightly. Do your homework. Dare I say, you do need a good cash support at the beginning.
reserve,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. As things turned out
yeah,
for Evoke, plans didn't go as
yeah,
planned. So we started with four of us initially. So we had sort of what you might say four salaries to pay straight off, which was a
yeah.
financial challenge. We
And did you have mortgages and like we all have credit cards, debt to service as well as start to run a business as
Oh
well?
yes, yeah. Still got the mortgage as well. Thanks to
Yeah,
the interest
yeah,
rates, it's getting ever more interesting. And as you
of
said,
course, yeah,
have three young daughters as well. I'm sure they're going to be more of a financial burden in years to come. But when we
yep,
started, the youngest one, she was only just over 12 months old, 18 months old. So yeah, I've got to admit, putting your whole career, family, online, and the future. It's a worry. Trust me, I had many sleepless
yeah.
nights, uh,
I'm sure
and
you
I
did. Yeah,
remember
I'm
on
sure you
my
did.
final day with Sistra, going into the London office to return my laptop and mobile phone, and I remember the train journey into the office, and I was thinking, oh my god, this is real. What am I going to do?
What am I doing?
from
What am
from
I doing?
tomorrow from tomorrow I've got no income, I've got no work, nothing. But look at this, turned out really well.
Hey, look at you now.
Dare I
Yeah, look at you
say,
now.
had work right from the off. Great support from David, John, Beth, who joined straight away.
Yeah,
Great support
you joined. Good.
from those as we were sort of building up the company, and of
You've
course,
grown.
great support
Yeah,
from the family and my wife as well. So,
yeah,
anyone
fantastic.
thinking
You're
about
the
it,
important ones.
do your homework, but have the confidence in yourself. You know deep down your abilities. You know you're good. You know you've got the experience. Do it. Don't be afraid.
Hey, on that though, Richard, if I picked up the phone myself now and I called three of your staff and I asked them to describe you on one word, what do you think those words would be?
Resisting the temptation to say tall and ginger. Oh gosh, what a question. Maybe you should make the live phone call now. It'd be like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Phone a friend.
Don't tempt me. Don't tempt me.
I would like to think they would say fun, engaging, uh, challenging. Maybe sometimes I would like to think that. But
Yep.
maybe after this, I'll go away and ask them.
We'll go and ask them.
Yes.
Let's go and survey them. Hey, Richard, 30 years in the industry, Richard. That's one hell of an innings. What's next for you and Evoke?
Listen, we really want to grow Evoke. We've got a great company, got a great team, looking to get more people on board, looking for the right people, cultural fit, right
Yeah, sure.
values, open other offices in other geographic areas, and to grow the team and contribute to our success. For myself, yeah, of course, going forward, I've got to think about the ultimate retirement, but still want a role for clients, key strategic advice, helping younger members of the team to develop maybe. Uh, Ultimately, want to leave a lasting impression on the industry. The right lasting impression, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Richard, thanks very much for joining us today. I wish you well in your success in your journey. And thanks so much for joining us today. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Today's episode of Practical Perspectives has been proudly supported by Padaris, the trusted toolkit empowering transport planners everywhere to plan faster, smarter, and more collaboratively. Experience the future of transport planning today at padaris.com/podcast.